And this is my presentation. It's called Rhombic Dot. You will know later why it's called Rhombic Dot. And I live in the past. I believe that there are two types of people. People who live in the future, who challenge the present at every moment, and people who, and then try to replace it, and people who live in the past. I live in the past. Things that have no memory, no traces, no history don't speak to me. What is beautiful to me is ugly to others, and what is ugly to me is beautiful to others. I tried escaping this Beirut syndrome, my city. It's a city of memories by excellence, but I could not. And I ended up feeling that maybe some people should live in the past to generally slow down the pace of this life and to create this balance, because some people are just chasing something that they're not really sure what it is. So in this presentation, I'm going to talk about Arabic typography, calligraphy, and from this perspective, past and present. I am Arab. So what is Arab anyway? If you look at the flags of the 23 Arab countries, we will notice that we have similarities. Dominance of the color red, green, black, the horizontal stripes, and some odds, like for example the zigzag shape in the Qatari and Bahraini flag. You have the dominance or the presence of the star and the crescent shape, but this doesn't really tell us anything about the Arab countries in general. So I tried stereotyping, I tried finding some kind of definition for myself. And I looked at the map, and apparently we are from Asia, we are from Africa, we are black, we are white, we have moderate weather, we have extreme weather, we are conservative, we are liberal, and we are both at the same time sometimes. So if we are such a mix, what is it? Maybe we are Arabs, we speak Arabic, I mean. But then again, we speak French and English and Spanish and Kurdish and Comorian and Somali, and the list goes on. So again, if we are such a mix, what is it that makes me Arab? Especially when you grow up in Lebanon or just a little bit out of everything. There's more the sense of nationalism than the sense of belonging to the Arab world. So my language is different. I only realized or decided that I'm Arab when I researched about my language, and I found out how interesting it is, how rich it is, how much full of stories. And as I said, I always look back for the stories and the history behind things. And I found an obsession with details and proportion and the sense of geometry, mathematic visualization, and harmony. And it was in the language and the alphabet at the same time. But in the language, I'm not going to really go through it because it's not my field. For example, poetry metrics were studied and visualized in amazing ways and inspired so many visuals in my head. But basically, I'm going to talk about the alphabet. Now, it made me look at my name in a different way. This is my name. It's an Arabic word. It means song. But when I researched its roots, apparently, I found something very interesting. So this is our keyboard, the bilingual keyboard, and I'm going to take advantage of this part to show you a quick introduction about the Arabic alphabet. So as you see, it's written from right to left, and you press, for example, one letter, you get the isolated shape of it, and then you press the other, and you get the initial and the final. So the shapes of the letters change. They have 4 states: initial, final, medial, and isolated. And then you have initial, medial, and final. And for example, this one is isolated again because the 3rd letter doesn't have a medial state. So not all the letters have all 4 aspects. And then again, if you press the space, you will get the isolated shapes of all the letters. So like all Semitic languages, Arabic it has triliteral roots, or roots of 3 consonants. So each word goes back to a root of 3 consonants, and the same root makes tons of different words. So I researched the root of my name, and yes, it does mean song. It is a root that means singing or song. But then again, if you switch the letters, it's the same root for another word, and it means beautiful. So, wow, I was really surprised and I was happy. And the other thing that I will not talk about is the Rhombic Dot system, which is a system of proportion. Many attempts to standardize the proportions of the letters. One of them is the Rhombic Dot system of proportion. And what is the Rhombic Dot? It's the concept of bringing all the letters into proportion with the first letter of the alphabet or with the dot. And here's this quick video to show you what it means. The dot is the pressure of the ink in one spot. It makes this rhombic shape. And then all the letters are measured in its terms. And they're measured also in proportion to the upright vertical stroke of this letter, which is the alif, the first letter of the alphabet. So in this script, the nasb, for example, if the alif has 5 dots, the ba has 5. And then you will notice different scripts and different proportions. Some scripts have the alif in 3 dots, like in the Farsi, for example, and the Ruqa. And this is the reed pen, which is cut by the calligrapher himself. In this case, it's probably metal, so it's not all bamboo. It's cut by the calligrapher himself. And this is the thulth script. The Quran usually was more written using the first script, the nasb script initially, and then the Kufi script. The Farsi script was developed more in Persian areas, and we will see now the Ruqa that is used nowadays a lot for just vernacular messages like parking, for example. In Beirut, they always use Ruqa. And the last one is the Diwani script, and it's more flowy and cursive. As you notice, the alif shape, for example, is not vertical anymore, it's more circular. The ba, the same. This is one of the very few calligraphers left in Lebanon, because this is becoming like an obsolete trend or craft, and hopefully people will do something to change this. So that was about the Rhombic Dot. Vocalization marks. What are vocals? The Arabic language does not have short vowels. It has long vowels, or just another type of consonants, because these vowels can have also vocalization on them. They are the sounds a, wa, and ya. And they were devised, or they were developed, elaborated for a reason. What is this reason? First, the main thing is that copying the Quran or transmitting religious messages, you have to avoid mistakes, you have to ensure that the message gets through and doesn't change at all. So initially, this is what was written before. No diacritic marks, no dots, and no vocalization marks. And people were able to read this, but then, because they were afraid of mixing, and now you will know what I mean, they did this, for example. This is the word Beirut, and with this kind of vocalization, it tells you if it's the word Beirut or Beirut. So it's an accent that you put on the first letter. And it was a dot, and often in a different color, green or red. But then, you have also another problem, which is some letters have the same basic shape, if we're not talking about the dots. So this word could be Beirut, if it has such dots, and it could be Tabruk, which doesn't have any meaning. But I mean, the same basic shape could hold many letters. So they had to add this kind of diacritics, which are dots again, and then they had to change the original shape of the vocalization marks, which I showed you earlier, these, into a different shape, not to mix the diacritics with the vocalization, and you end up having this. And this is what we draw today, what we write today. The vocals, if you want to understand more about them, for example, in Arabic, if you want to say house, you don't say house, you don't have a vocal. I'll simplify it to this first, house, and then the end, you don't need it. And then it gets simplified only to the sound ha, wa, se, and then you add the vocals on them. The first one tells you to open, ha, and then wa to just be silent, and s to be silent on the s. So this is pet. The first sign, which is this, is something called fatha, or opening. The second one, put. is dhamma, or holding, or grouping, and pit, or kasra. And also the vocalization play a grammatical role. That is, for example, according to the position of the word in the sentence, if you want to say I went to the house, or the house is big, or I bought a house, you say I went to the house C, or the house 2 is big, or I bought a house up. And people nowadays don't really know how to do this anymore. Not all of them, of course, not all cultures, but there is a problem when it comes to grammatics because people are just not interested anymore. So what is left from all this heritage and all this past and all these studies and elaboration that I basically covered 1% of maybe? So like I said, I look for the old and things. And now when I look at the new, I often find myself saying, it was better, why did I change it? But I'm not against change, I am with change, I do acknowledge the need behind it. For example, I am with this kind of change. The calligraphy moved from being restricted to Islam, to religious messages, to having a narrative message, and to being just hand-drawn by scribes, to something more abstract where it's okay if the emotions of the calligrapher or the typographer or the designer are involved, because before the Islamic art philosophy was totally against being humanistic. So the content is different today. It's not legibility. The purpose is not legibility. So I don't mind mixing these letters in such a manner, but at least it preserves the aesthetics of the letter shapes. It doesn't just ruin them in any way. This is the work of one of my students. And I look for the old. I find it in something like this. This is the sign in Saudi Arabia, in the old market, against something like this also in Saudi Arabia. To me, this has more identity, and this is just being neutral. And an old banknote where the use of the scripts, the diwani in this case, is integrated and with design trends that are seen nowadays. I see the balance of old and new versus this banknote from Beirut or Lebanon, the 1,000 lira. And to me, it lacks somehow identity. I see it in this, although if I show this picture to my friends, they will tell me, are you crazy? This is very ugly. But to me, it says something. It's in Saudi Arabia, it's a restaurant. It says one thing first, that Saudi people like the red and the yellow so much. It's all over Saudi Arabia, these two colors. The second thing is that they need representation. They still don't grasp the concept of abstraction a lot. So whatever you sell, put a picture of it, and then people will understand more. And then, for example, the use of the exaggeration in the use of effects, you know, embossing and drop shadow and all these, to me, it says something. Versus this, for example, in Beirut, it's another restaurant. To me, it says that I sell parsley or coriander, I don't know what it is, and I'm 100% Lebanese, and it doesn't say anything else. And I found it in the old Damascus markets. It's more vernacular, traditional, where people just drew lettering or commissioned a calligrapher, or sometimes you don't even know who did this, but it comes from a need and it says something. It says, it's not perfect. These are all from Souq al-Hamidiyya in Damascus. And I find it in the graffiti in Beirut, where you can see the process of the hand lettering, which is characteristic of Arabic calligraphy, the element of time. When you decipher, this was before, not as much in this as it was in real calligraphy, but the element of time is present, where you actually live the composition, you look at it from the beginning till the end. And in this case, the message is not religious, it's sarcastic, because it says, smile, when the symbol of the owl, or when you say owling, it means you're being cranky in the Lebanese culture. And a salutation from my heart to Beirut. It's a nostalgic message.